So what I have here for you is I've got kind of like a character poster. You know, we looked at all the different kind of posters that exist out there, and I created a character poster. And so I've got my title on here, which is Homeward Bound, right? And the original title of the movie, this is an old movie. This movie is from the 60s. It was actually called The Incredible Journey. And then in the 90s, they remade this movie and they called it Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey. And I wanted that on there for sure, right? So at first I had The Incredible Journey up top, you know, right around here. And I don't know why. There was something about it. It didn't really fit all that well. And I had all this dark space on the bottom. And it just kind of seemed like it needed, you know, to be filled up. So I tossed that on the bottom. And then I wanted it to be this this character poster. So my character is this dog named Jack. Okay? And Jack, he's a cool dog, right? But at the end of the day, you know, like, again, I needed that text there because without it, it kind of really looked kind of like not enough, right? Kind of plain. I also went ahead and I put this up here at the top, a tale of true loyalty, or excuse me, a true tale. Ooh, a tale of true loyalty. That sounds better. Yeah, let's change that. Oh, a tale of true loyalty. I used to have a lab, and you know, at the end of the day, when I was thinking about this last night, I'm like, how would I define my lab? And like loyal was the first word that like came to my mind because she was an extremely loyal animal, an extremely loyal pet. So, and the idea of this movie, if you've ever seen it, is that these dogs and this cat get left. They're on like they're like moving or they're camping or something like that, and they get left by accident, and then they have to like go find their family, and they like go across like the nation to find their family. It's kind of unrealistic and crazy, but you know what? My dog would do it for me, so therefore it's a tale of true loyalty, right? So anyway, so this is one kind of way we can approach this. This is a character poster, right? Another way we can approach this is with your traditional kind of movie poster billing. And what billing is that it's that stuff on the bottom of your posters that has you know, all the information there. Now, I got this part all dark simply because I went ahead and I put a couple masks there. And I didn't use one mask. I decided to use two because I did some like, you know, bad Photoshop stuff. I did some evil Photoshop stuff, and I really just kind of like extended that dog's body down. But it's not good, and I'm not proud of it, but it's like a down and dirty Photoshop thing because I knew nobody would see it. I could hide it, and then I could hide it again. So then that's really hidden. And before I showed you that, you didn't realize that that's all like really cruddy Photoshop at the bottom. But the thing is that like Jack wasn't long enough, and I needed him to get longer, and I needed to extend him, and I only had so much stuff to clone him with. So I had to go ahead and I had to do it with some other stuff. So anyway, so again, this is what we call a kind of character poster. What I want to do is I want to kind of do more of a traditional poster so you can kind of see that. So I'm going to open up a file that I already have here kind of ready, if it opens. Oh no, I think it's just thinking. There it is. And so this is called billing, right? And essentially, I'm going to open it up for real, but I want to show it to you. So it's that text at the bottom of a movie poster. And what I have is I have the billing here for The Dark Knight. Okay, so I have Christian Bale's name on it, Michael Caine, Gary Oldman, all that sort of stuff on here. And this is something that I've gone ahead and I've created on my own. So this is something that I'm going to be able to access. I got these logos from the internet, okay? And I got them from this place that's a really great place called brandsoftheworld.com. So, for example, here come the notes. Notes weren't important before, but now they're important. Good. So anyway, I went ahead and I can search in here like something like Disney. And what these are, this is not Disney, Disney. And this is a big vector logo library. And I can download these things for free. And these are made by people like me and you who've gone ahead and have had to like remake these things. So like when I was in your shoes, I had a high-pitched voice and a lot of pimples. No, when I was in your shoes, okay, and I was like, you know, it was a long time ago. And if you wanted to recreate a logo, the best you could do is slap a JPEG, you know, if you could find one. Usually you had to scan something, okay, and then put that in Illustrator and then draw on top of it and remake the whole thing. And I've done this for countless numbers of logos. I did it professionally for a while, as well as doing it as a student. And luckily, websites like this started to exist, where essentially people were like, hey, I did that work, and I want to kind of share it with the graphics community. And so why am I going to make somebody else do the work if I did it already? So essentially, I can go through here and I can, you know, just hit the next tab a couple times, and eventually, boom, there's Walt Disney Pictures. And it gives us some information about it, right? So this is a vector format. It says EPS. That stands for Encapsulated PostScript. That's something that Illustrator can read. Illustrator can read pretty much any of these things, okay? And I talk about Illustrator because we're going to go and tweak it in Illustrator a little bit first before we get to Photoshop, even though the poster's in Photoshop. But Illustrator can read this, which is kind of nice because essentially you want to be able to access it and modify it and do some different stuff to it. There's a handful of files on here Illustrator can't read, and they're going to be CAD files. They're very few and far between, but they're called, I want to say, SDK files, but I could be wrong about that. But if you try to open it up and Adobe doesn't recognize it, it's a file that a file type it can't read. So I'm going to download this artwork, and I'm going to agree that I'm not going to do anything bad with it, and that I'm not going to go ahead and try to make money on it. And then I'm also going to agree that I am not a robot, and it's going to ask me to select all squares with street signs in it. So these all have street signs in it, and verify that I'm not a robot. That's a street sign, that's a street sign, that's a street sign. Wait a minute. Okay. I don't know, man. Okay. So now I can download it. It's funny. Sometimes they make you pretend you're not a robot, and other times they don't. Last night, for example, I downloaded that logo, and they didn't ask me if I was a robot. So I'm going to download it. I find it. It's hanging out in my downloads folder, and I can drag it right into Illustrator. If Illustrator wants to turn on. I know I just made this big thing about how these computers are faster and yada, 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 and now it doesn't want to turn on. You're making me look bad. Okay, there we go. Okay, so if I go ahead and I highlight this, there is going to be a box around it, all right? And I don't want that box. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight with the direct selection tool, or the white arrow, right? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab where that box is. I'm just going to tap the delete key. And you'll see, since I only caught one corner, it literally has got something there, right? And I could change that color. Watch. So you can see it. It's a box. We don't want that, so let's get rid of that. So now we have a free floating logo here. Cool. Now let's open up that billing that I actually had before. And I'm going to open up, this is essentially what I started out with, right? And this is my example of the Dark Knight billing. And everything is in here and it's editable, okay? And then this is kind of more of a custom one where we have all the information here. Now, this was actually done. This one here. This was done by a student. Okay, and there's some good things going on here that I'd like to point out. So it looks real, and part of the reason why it looks real is the font that they're using. Okay, so they're using a font called Univers LT Standard, and it's 39 thin, ultra condensed. I will provide you with this font, so that way your stuff looks legit. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and just build another artboard here. And by all means, I'm going to give you my template, and you can use my template. Or you can build your own. I don't care, okay? And again, all you need to do is you need to use that font, right? So I'm going to make one here for Homeward Bound. So Walt Disney Pictures presents. And I probably want to make it a little bit bigger, so I'll turn on my character palette. So I'll do a Command T, Control T on a PC, and I'm going to go ahead and make this larger. Do you think that's big enough, or do you think that's too big? What do you think compared to that one? Too big, yeah. Now, I can cheat, and I can just click on here, and I can get a sense of how big this was. This was 48.47. How did I come to that number? Well, I just kind of sized it correctly. Because what I did here, right, just so we're aware, is this artboard is 27 inches wide. So I built it so it's going to be the size of the poster, all right? So before I start playing around with sizes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change my font to Univers 39 Thin Ultra Standard, okay? Excuse me, Thin Ultra Condensed. And all right, that's kind of looking a little bit better. Now, the way that these things work, right, is that we have certain things that are going to be larger than other things. So like Walt Disney Pictures is the name of a production company, so that's going to be big, whereas the word presents, that's going to be small. And what you need to do here is you need to figure out kind of what that relationship is between these things, right? What your big number is and what your little number is. And again, there's not a right or a wrong here, because you may have multiple lines of billing. You know, like for example, The Dark Knight had a ton of people in it, right? Big production. So they have 3, maybe 5 lines of billing in it. I've probably gone ahead and made it a lot easier than it needs to be, just based on, just for probably a lack of time. So I'll go ahead and I'll do Walt Disney Pictures. I'm going to go ahead and keep this specifically left aligned for a reason. You're going to see it, why, in a few minutes. So I'm going to then go ahead and select this thing, hold the Option key down all on a PC, and click and drag straight down. And now I just have a copy of it. And what I want to do is I just want to start writing things out, okay? Now, I have this up here in one single line, right? This is one single line of text. If I click on it, it's all there. And I'm going to try to do the same thing. So, I'm going to say, and I want these all capitals, in association with Walt Disney Pictures, right? And then I'm going to say A, and I'm using Steven Spielberg's company, Amblin Entertainment. I'm using that in my poster because they work a lot with Disney. Steven Spielberg does. And I thought, like, this feels like a Steven Spielberg movie. Like, it's a journey, right? So anyway, A, Amblin Entertainment production, a film by Steven Spielberg. I hope I don't spell his name wrong. Okay. And then I need some actors, right? And Jack here, he's going to be voiced by none other than George Clooney. Okay. Okay. Now Clooney is a pretty big name, right? Right. He holds a lot of movies and stuff like that. So you got to think about like who the star of your movie is when you're thinking of billing, because their name should kind of be one of the first things, right? Prior to even the name of the movie. And I'm going to now put the movie in quotes. Homeward Bound. And who else is in my movie? Oh, let me think. So, all right. I need another actor. Will Smith? I don't want to put Will Smith in this movie. Morgan Freeman? Morgan Freeman is in every movie at the end, as you'll see in a minute. I'm going to put Owen Wilson because he's got a Disney contract. Right? What's that? Yeah. He could be the cat. Or, let's see. Johnny Depp? No. Johnny Depp's a pirate and a cowboy and everything else. Creepy things. He's not. He could be like a bird in the movie, right? All right. All right. How about Seth Rogen? Yeah, sure, because that's going to go over well. But why not? Let's do that, right? And then how about we go ahead and we use, I don't know. What's her name? Brie Larson. She's like a pretty big name now. And Morgan Freeman. Actually, no. Instead of Morgan Freeman, we're using Johnny Depp. And Johnny Depp. Okay? Now, I want to point this out. People like Morgan Freeman, Johnny Depp, really big name actors, right? If they are the lead in a movie, then by all means, their name goes first. But if they're not the lead, if they're just like a character in the movie, but they happen to be that actor, their name always goes at the end, right? They can be like an ancillary character. They can be like, for example, did you guys see the Batman movie? Yes? Okay. Morgan Freeman was in that movie. Was Morgan Freeman Batman? Was Morgan Freeman Alfred? Was Morgan Freeman the bad guy? Morgan Freeman was like Batman's tech dude, right? He was in a handful of scenes. He was funny in them. He stole the scenes a couple times, but like the thing is that like we could have inserted anybody into that role, but they decided to pay for Morgan Freeman, right? And Morgan Freeman put on a good performance in that role. So the thing is that like his name will go at the end, because if your name's not at the front of the billing, your name should be at the end of the billing if you're kind of a big star. If you're not a big star, you're somewhere in the middle. And it depends on how big of a star as to like where you're at in it, right? So, okay, cool. So I have this here, right? So I've got this big kind of line of text, and it's too big, right? Let's not worry about that yet. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy it down yet one more time. Except I'm going to get rid of like everything. Except for maybe like 2 words. Doop. Get rid of that. And we're going to zoom in here. And we're going to do music by, and I like John Williams. He's the guy that does Star Wars music, right? Now, I'd like to point something out, right? When we see all this like music by and costume designers and edit it by and all that sort of stuff, right? All right. What we have is we've got kind of 2 lines of text going on. So I'm going to turn on my guides, which first I need to have my rulers on. That's a Command R, and I'm going to pull a guide down. I'm literally just going to drop a guide at the bottom of these letters and here at the top of the letters, just like this. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to select John Williams here again, and I'm going to just drag it off to the left and make a copy of it. And I want to just say music, and then I want it to be like 2 lines. So I'm going to say by, okay? Now, I need to make music by fit inside of this exact like height of the other letters. So how do I do that? A couple ways. I play around with character size, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just make this a lot smaller. If the other one was 60, maybe I'll go to 25, okay? So that's one way to do it. And then, probably can go a little bit bigger actually, maybe like 28. And then after I have that, I have to deal with this space in between the letters, which is called what? Leading, correct. So I'm going to find my leading, and I'm going to go ahead, and right now it's auto leading, so I'm just going to make it smaller, and I'm going to go ahead and toss it on there. And I know it's really close at the moment, but it's not quite there yet. So that means I'm going to get in here, and I'm going to be like 23.2 until I push it to, so it's like exactly where it's got to be. So, okay, so I've got that. Now, check this out. Music by is on one piece, John Williams is on the other piece. John Williams is what we call left justified over here, or excuse me, aligned left over here. Music by is also aligned left, but I want to align that to the right. And I'm going to show you why in about a minute, right? So we've got music by John Williams. We should probably get that a little closer to one another, right? Does that kind of look legit? Does that look real? Right? Cool. So check this out. So I'm going to do the music by John Williams. I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to say object and group. Now, I can move this around however I want, and I can even just hold down my Option key and duplicate it. And I know it's kind of all out of whack at the moment. Don't worry about it. We're going to fix that. So now we need to think about, like, I don't know, like the costume designer. How about that? Anybody know any costume designer names? Okay. So again, I want to make this as authentic as possible. So I'm going to go to Google, and I'm going to ask that question. Costume designer, Academy Award. And here we are. Okay, cool. So Irene Sheriff is going to be our costume designer. This woman right here. Edit and copy. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to highlight this and just paste. Oh no, it's all, you know, like uppercase and lowercase. I don't want that. So check this out. I can go to type, and I can say change case and just say uppercase. Bam, just like that. Pretty awesome, right? Why retype if you don't have to? And so check this out. I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to write out costume designer. And this is why I went ahead and I aligned this to the right and I aligned this to the left, because there's always going to be this space in the middle that's never going to change. One's going to push to this way, to the right, one's going to push to the left. And then that way you can do this, and it goes fast, and it's simple, and it's easy. And again, they're grouped. So I can easily go ahead and move this thing around, or I can easily copy it. And then all I have to do is highlight the text to go ahead and do that. All right. Film editing. Academy Award. Okay. Best editor. Oh, here we are. Hold it, right here. Winner, nominee. Ooh. I'm going to go with the nominee. I'm going with La La Land. Tom Cruise. Okay. Trying to highlight that. It wants to just like click on something. Okay, I can write that. Tom Cruise. So, Tom Cruise. Edited by. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this for all the different things that you find in a real movie poster. And if you're not sure what you find in a real movie poster, again, just Google one. I don't care what it is, right? So, I don't know. How about Moana poster? Images. I'm going to go to Tools, Large, and I want to find the one that's got the billing on it. And I don't see that. Does it? It's got a little bit, but not much. I want like some people's names. All right. Of course, because I want it. It's not going to be there. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just do a new movie. How about...
do the Dark Knight.
Yeah, I'll do The Dark Knight. And we'll do large. And right here is fine. We'll view image, and we're going to zoom into it. Yeah, I want to zoom in. So music by, costume designer, editor, production designer, director, photography, executive producers. Okay, so I got some stuff. And look, I said edited by. Oops, that should just say editor. Now, when it's a single line of text, you put it on the bottom like that, okay? When it's 2 lines, you use the top and the bottom, right? All right, so how about we do executive producers? Executive producers. There we are. And this could be like a long list of people. So I'm going to put like Tom Hanks. Yeah, he produces stuff. Johnny Depp, why not? He's got money, right? Producers are the people with the money that make the movie happen. I don't know. Michael Eisner. He used to work there. He might be dead. But who else? Nick Pajo. Sure, why not? What's that? Christopher Nolan. Yeah, he's a real family guy. Okay, so there we are. Okay, so I got a bunch of them here, right? So I got music by, costume designer, editor, executive producers, and I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna toss these on here. All right, and there's more that you can put on there. I'm just not gonna get into all of them because I don't want to waste our time. Let's pretend that I'm just going to call this director of photography. And I don't know, how about Nick Amidon? Right, there we are. Okay, cool. So I have these now, right? And they're all kind of grouped, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to screw them up on purpose. Just like that, right? And what I want to use is I want to use the Align panel in Illustrator here. And the Align panel is a pretty awesome thing. It's kind of powerful. So check it out. I'm going to grab all these things. And I'm going to pick one of them. It doesn't matter which one. I'll click this one, Irene Sheriff. And that's essentially going to say I'm going to align everything to this. So it's like I do a second selection. And I'm just going to say I want to go ahead and I want to align the objects so all of their bottoms kind of are the same. Just like that. And then I can also go ahead and I can play around with spacing. And I can distribute spacing among each thing. And I can say that I want the spacing in between everything to be 1 inch, right? And I can say, go like this, boom. And now there's an inch in between each of those things. Or I can say an inch seems like too much. So how about, I don't know, like 0.25 inches and just align my spacing. And there I go. And now all those things are lined up correctly and they look pretty good. Except director of photography looks weird. I think it's too long. So I'm going to put director of and then photography on the bottom. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. But everything else looks pretty good, right? Let's grab them all again. I want to go ahead and put my spacing in there. There, that moves everything around. Since I changed the director of photography, I had to move that around again. So now check it out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to group this together. And let's get back up to the top line because I never really addressed it. So, because it's too big, right? Well, it's really not, because if you recall, I have two sizes of text here. I have 60 for the big text, and I have 40 for the little text. So things like in association with, right? That's not got to be big text. It's going to be little text. So I'll make that 40. And then, so Walt Disney Pictures, and this is A Amblin production, and Amblin, right? 2 A words. So an Amblin production. So an Amblin Entertainment, and then I'll make this and a film by are both going to get small. Steven Spielberg, George Clooney, Homeward Bound, Owen Wilson, Seth Rogen, Brie Larson, and again can get small. Okay, cool. So now it still kind of looks like one big kind of like mess though, because there's just too much stuff going on, right? Let's just clear this out of the way so we can see more. So what we want to do is we want to like jump in here, like between Spielberg and Clooney, right? We have to go ahead and we have to toss a little bit of space in between these letters. What's that called? Nope, tracking is the space in between the lines. This is kerning. This is space in between letters. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to increase my kerning here. Not by 200, because that's a big gap. Actually, that doesn't look all too bad by going by 200. Maybe 100, okay? We just need a little extra space in between these things, just so then that way it tends to work out a little bit better. So we'll put it between Homeward Bound and also Owen Wilson too. And then we could go ahead and we can now put a little bit of space in between people like Owen Wilson and Seth Rogen, maybe like half of that. What you do not do is please do not go ahead and just put spaces. That's not appropriate, so we don't do that, okay? So there we are. Now, I'm going to pretend that I went ahead and I filled this whole thing out, right? Because I did this one. But that I went ahead and I made another one, and there's more people. There's like, you know, like all the different parts of a film on there, like based upon characters created by and published by this person, and story by this person, and screenplay and produced and directed by. Like, all that's important stuff. And I'm not going to say it's not important. I'm just not putting it on there right now, okay? Because you kind of, I think, can understand what's going on. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of text here, right? This line of text is still too big, correct? Yeah. So we need to go ahead and we need to make that a little bit smaller. But before I go ahead and do that, I want to make sure that I grab all of them, because these are all have a relationship to one another, right? And I'm going to go ahead and just scale them together. Now, after I have them all scaled together, I want to grab them all again. And notice, bless you, notice they're all separate, right? I want to grab them all together, and I can go ahead and I can align them again. And I can pick one thing to align to, like maybe this big piece of text, and I can align them so they're centered, or maybe so they're to the left or to the right. Here's the thing. Every poster can be different. And when you research your posters, you're going to see that that's true. And that's up to you how you want to do that, right? Again, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to grab all of them. And I'll pick one of them, it doesn't matter, and I'm going to distribute spacing again. And I can distribute spacing going vertically as well as horizontally. I don't know, how about 0.05 distribute, okay? And I can play around with this. 0.03 distribute and get them really close to one another. Can I go negative? I can. So whatever you want to do to get them together, you want it so you can read it. That's the most important thing, I think, is that you can read it. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of John Williams here. Not that there's anything wrong with John Williams. I just don't want him here anymore. Because I want to try to create this kind of funnel shape almost. That's how most billing is done, to have, you know, the single kind of line of whatever the studio is presents, and then bigger line, medium line, small line, smaller line, smallest line, however many lines of billing you have in there. So that's how you can create it, and how you can create it like for real. I've also been known to do this, where I'm like, it's not quite right, I can't distribute spacing with the tool the right way. Okay. That's cool. I get it, right? Get it as close as you can, and then like start to eye it. So what I'll do is I'll grab this line, and this line, right? And then I'll hold the shift key down, I'll hit down one. And I'm like, okay. Down the arrow a second time, a third time. And I'm like, okay, I kind of like that space in there. Now I have to do it for these two. 1, 2, 3. And I have to do it for this. 1, 2, 3. And now, again, that just lets me know the space in between there is going to be correct. Right? It's just a little trick It's totally up to you to do if you want to do it, but play around with it by all means. So we have billing now, real billing, okay? And if I want to bring it over, I'm going to just highlight it like this, and I'm grabbing like all sorts of stuff here. So I'm going to grab this stuff that I keep grabbing, and I'm going to just lock it with a Command or Control 2, and I'm going to grab all this stuff and say edit and copy. And over here in Photoshop, I'm going to just go ahead and say edit and paste. And I can paste this as a path if I want, as pixels, as a shape layer, as a smart object. I recommend a smart object because you know what? Unless you were like a spelling bee champion, chances are you may have spelled something incorrectly. And you know who's going to point it out? Someone else. So if you make it a smart object, you can easily double click on it and go right back into Illustrator and you can fix it. If you make it pixels, then you got to go back to find your Illustrator file. You got to fix it. You got to bring it back into Photoshop. And then as you're going to see, we're going to do some stuff to it in Photoshop. All right, so I'm going to just bring it over. It basically fills the whole thing, right? I probably can go a little smaller with it because I don't want it to actually touch the edges. So here we are, right? Cool. And it comes in as vector smart object, so I'm just going to double click on that and call it what it is, billing. And again, originally my poster was that character poster, right? So Jack's name doesn't need to be on there anymore. And I can probably take the Incredible Journey and I can probably move it up where Jack's name was, right? And I can probably like get rid of Coming Home and Amblin and Disney at the moment and really focus on the billing. And I'm going to bring it right about here. Does that look good? Why not? Because you can't see it. Of course you can't see it. Because it's dark down there and that billing is dark. Yeah. So how can we fix it? Well, I guess we can go back to Illustrator and we can change the color and we can copy it again and we can bring it back, or even we can double click on the smart object, click, click, and it's going to bring us back to Illustrator. That's totally a thing. We can do it that way, right? But an even faster way and a more efficient way of doing it, it's down here, by the way. Yeah. An even faster and more efficient way of doing it than that is we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go to our layer styles and we're going to say color overlay. Because again, why do work more than once if you don't have to? So let's pick like a white color and jack it up. Change the blend mode off of color burn to something like normal. And we got that. White maybe doesn't work. How about I go ahead and I go into my color picker and I try to maybe like grab like a color from the dog or like the leash, or excuse me, the collar. Or maybe like one of these flowers back here. That's kind of cool. That could work, right? You know what doesn't work? This. Let's bevel it and let's put a, you know, gradient on it and let's do all this cool stuff to it. No, don't do that. This is not the time to do that, okay? Don't go crazy with these things. Like that is going to look really cool on screen and then on paper you won't be able to read it, okay? So don't do those things. Instead, just worry about colors. Think about contrasting colors. That's really what you're going to want to have here. So I kind of think that kind of like orangey gold kind of works out. I might want it a little bit brighter. Yeah, maybe a little bit brighter because everything on a computer always looks brighter than it does on paper, right? So let's say okay to that. And there's our billing. Now, I went ahead and I also went ahead and put things on here like Coming Home, July 4th, 2008. Okay, so I could have put in theaters. I could have done that, but it's a movie about like your pet finding their way home. So I went ahead and did it that way. And I purposely have it in a different kind of font. And I could do that in Illustrator if I want, or I could do that over in Photoshop. I did it in Photoshop. I'm going to open up my character palette because the more I look at it, the more I like it, but I also want to, I think, change it. So this Coming Home right here, instead of Avenir Light, I want to like look at like Avenir like black and see what happens. I kind of dig that a little bit more, I think. right? I feel like it's beefier and it's heavier and it takes up a little bit more weight, so I kind of dig that. And then the logos, okay? If I go ahead and I say edit and copy, I can just do an edit and paste as a smart object over here, just like I did the other one, right? And then I can do the same exact thing where I could go ahead and I could go into color overlay, pick the color overlay. In this case, I think I would pick white so it matches up with this coming home kind of thing, right? So the other thing that Brands of the World also has are things like this. PG rating, right? It's a movie, so I should put a rating on it. Okay, cool. So I agree. I am not a robot. Oh, man. All squares with street sign, street sign, street sign, street sign, street sign, street sign, street sign. Next. Street sign, street sign, street sign, street sign, street sign, street sign. Verify. Yes, I am not a robot. Download. I'll go ahead on my downloads and I'll find it. I will drag it into Illustrator first. Why not just bring it into Photoshop? The reason why I won't bring them directly into Photoshop is because they're going to end up having those white boxes behind them, right? And you don't want that. Let's try that one more time. Here we are.
Selected out the white box, would you like still give you that like outline thing?
What's that?
In Photoshop,
If you use the selection tool, yeah, but it's gonna be, if you, yeah, you could bring it in and you could try to like magic wand it, but it's just not gonna be clean, right? And you want these things to be clean. So so what I usually do is to just double check. I select them all, because the thing is we didn't make it, so we don't know how it was built. This one actually was built really well because there's no white box, which is cool. So I'll grab this, I'm gonna say edit and copy, and I'm gonna jump back over here to Photoshop, paste, smart object. Again, that way if I ever have to get back to it, I can. And a smart object also makes it a vector, which means I can go ahead and I can resize it however I want from, you know, forever basically. So I'll go ahead, I'll toss it there. I'll call it rating. This is Disney logo. You want to really name your layers, it's going to be very helpful. And I'll go ahead and I will toss a color overlay on here. I will make it white, just like the other one. And now it's just about like balancing this thing out, right? I have the Amblin Entertainment logo somewhere around here. Okay, and if you think about it, right, the Amblin and the Disney logo, they both kind of together create kind of a rectangle, and this PG over here, that creates a rectangle too, right? So it's just about finding that happy balance between them, right? If you also want to, if you don't want these things to like be screaming because they're bright white, then don't make them white. Make them like an off-white, or make them white and then bring their opacity down a little bit. Like maybe like, I don't know, like 70%, 75%, something like that. Because then that way they're not going to scream, right? Coming Home will still stand out more. That might be a thing to do. And I'm just going to copy the effect over to the other ones so I don't have to rebuild it. Now, putting them on here, right? Because again, the rating holds similar, not an identical, but a similar weight, right? How do we find like that happy sweet spot, right? Well, I'm gonna go ahead and take Disney and Amblin and I'm gonna link them together. And I got the rating. Okay, cool. So what I'm gonna do is just silly. I do this for tons of crap though. I'm gonna create like a marquee, and I'm just gonna go ahead and go on one side of Coming Home, and I'm just fill it with any old color except for black, because then I won't be able to see it. But yeah, white's fine. And I'm going to just take my rating and I'm going to make sure that I line it up with that. Okay? Then I'm going to take that little block I made. I'm going to bring it over here. Okay, and check it out. Like, Amblin's getting cut off, so I'm going to grab these. I'm going to just pull them and get them over there. Disney and Amblin, they could probably get a little closer to one another. Like that. That could probably work. And now these are pretty much lined up. They might be a little messed up though, like this one might be taller than this one, and this one might be shorter than this one, right? That might happen. In Photoshop, just like in Illustrator, I can grab multiple things, and up here on the top, I can go ahead and I can say align their bottoms, right? Align the bottom edges, or align the top edges, or align the middles, whatever I want to do, right? I think aligning the bottom edges is probably the way to go. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to pull it up a little bit. I'm purposely not aligning them with the July 4th. I want that to sit below it a little bit more. And again, if I wanted to, I could throw, like, if this was going to be in 3D, I could have a logo there for that, or like Dolby Digital Sound. You know, you want to make it authentic, right? You want it to be as authentic as possible. And so here is like a secondary kind of poster. I started with one, right? And I didn't delete anything. I just moved some stuff around, turned a couple layers off, and added some stuff. So now I'm just going to say file and save. And you had a question.
Never mind.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions? None? Okay. So I kind of hope that I added enough to this to add a little, some kind of problem. I really want a problem to happen. When I was doing this in some previous videos, the problem didn't happen, and I was hoping the problem was going to happen now since I was adding these extra layer style, or excuse me, not layer styles, these extra smart objects, and it didn't happen. So I'm going to add something else to this poster to let the problem happen. As I mentioned before, Johnny Depp is in this movie, right? And I said, we'll make him a bird, right? So let's make Johnny Depp a bird. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stock art this. And, oh, I don't know. How about Pexels? That's what you mentioned before, right? Let's check that one out. And let's go hawk. Let's see if we can find a bird. Or eagle. Or something along that line. And these are great. These are awesome. But I want it to be flying. I want this kind of hawk, right? So, flying bird. Seagull? Hummingbird? Really? You can catch a hummingbird, but you can't get a hawk in the air? Okay. Duck. Whatever that is. Ooh, here we go. Let's click on that. I'm going to free download that. Original size. Perfect. Now, maybe he's their friend. Or maybe he's trying to eat the cat. Because, right? I don't know. He's an eagle or a hawk or something like that. It's Johnny Depp. You can go either way, right? So, I'm going to select the bird really quick. And I'm going to just magic wand select. And I got a little too much in there. Let's try that again with contiguous turned on. There we go. Got a little something there in the mouth. Let's get rid of that. What is that? Yeah, I don't care. I'm going to leave that part there because I'm not sure about it. But anyway, select and mask. Wait, that's not right. Because I selected everything but what I wanted. So let's go ahead and inverse that. And now let's select and mask yet again. Okay. And we got it on a white background. That's a pretty good mask, actually. Let's maybe just bump up the radius just a little bit. Okay. Feather it just a tad bit. Just to soften like some of those feathers up. And, oops, it looks like I missed a piece. Right there. I didn't mean to do that. Let's put it on black and let's see if we can see it better. Right there. See that? That's not what I'm looking for. That's sky. I don't want that. So I'm going to use some of these tools. This is a brush tool. Make it smaller, and I'm going to say I want to go ahead and delete those pixels. So I'm just going to get in there and just paint those away. And this is a powerful tool because of this. Like, you can get in there. I remember when these windows first came out, like, you'd basically have to like kind of remember where some of these mistakes were and then go back and like fix your selection and then come back to this window. So it's great. You can do it right on the fly now. Now, I see kind of like a white edge around this guy, which isn't going to work for me. Oh man, I missed a whole bunch. So to remove the white edge, right, what I want to do essentially is I want to go ahead and that might be part of the highlight of the feather. But to remove the right edge, I'm going to go ahead and go into shift edge. I'm just pull it down. And there, it's gone. No one's the wiser. Well, except us. When I went ahead and I increased the edge texture, or the feather, it went ahead and added this back in. So I'm going to just get in here and just get rid of it manually. That's what feather does sometimes. It'll go ahead and I'll do that. It is what it is, you know. Sometimes you want a soft edge, so you want that feather in there, but other times it kind of gives you a little bit of problems. So you just got to weigh your options, whether, you know, it's going to work or it's not going to work. I'm probably going to pop my contrast up too, just to give a nice sharp kind of edge, you know, which I know is the opposite of feathering, but actually it kind of, they both work well together. I'll output this to a selection. I'll do a Command J and jump it to a new layer, and now I can move him over to here. Yep. All right. Okay, cool. And he's a bird, so he's in flight, so that's all right. It looks like I got some crud over here. See this? Select, delete. Goodbye. Layer 4, we'll call him Johnny. All right. And then we can play around. Like, he can fly that way. He's a bird, right? No. I don't know.
Yeah. Start a sharp or kill.
It's kind of dark, right? Yeah, I think so too. So let's go ahead and let's just do a levels adjustment on him, right? And just on him. And let's just go ahead and let's see if we can brighten him up a little bit. Kind of too much, right? So that's all right. There's a mask here. Let's take our mask and let's paint him black with a nice soft edge and just go ahead. Maybe like 20% opacity, something around there, and just kind of darken up the areas where we kind of want it. And check it out. Without that, it's all dark. So that lightens it up enough, right? I don't know if I love the placement still, but we're going to make it work. All right, cool. So let's say file and save. And I hope that this gets me to where I need to be to have my mistake happen. Because if it doesn't, then I got to make like 17 more birds. I'll explain what I want my mistake to be when it happens. It's not even a mistake. It's just like this is going to happen to you. And I can't seem to make it happen to me as much as I keep trying to make it happen. Oh, wait. We're only at 28%. Okay. Now, while this is saving, I'd just like to point out that you want a full layered copy. You want a layer of literally everything. Do not merge things unless you have them in folders that like you're going to go ahead and you're going to play around with after the fact, right? Like don't merge all that stuff just to do it, like, or don't flatten it just to do it. You want the layered version because that way you can go ahead and you can modify it after, let's say, critique, right? And it is all good. All right, so what I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to get above 2 gigabytes, and I'm at 1.98, and I started at 1.94 or something like that, so I thought this bird would like get me there, and it's absolutely not doing it for me. So I need to just do something stupid right now to make it get there, okay? So if you're wondering why I'm doing what I'm doing, it's just so I can give you an example. I'm going to take all my pictures, all of them here, and I'm going to put them in a group, right? There, all the pictures are in a group, right? And I'm going to call that imagery. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to merge my group and make a copy of my layer. So then that way, I totally have to have enough now to make this work. So now when I say file and save, it's got to be above 2 gigabytes. And if it's not, watch your teacher go crazy. Then you're going to see me go crazy if it's 1.99. While this is saving, do you have any questions? No? Okay. How many of you have begun working in Photoshop? Okay. I would have loved to have seen all the hands up. So that means that you got a lot of work to do between now and when we're ready to, go into critique. I picked this specific movie to do my demo with because I wanted to show that you don't necessarily need a person. You can have, it's an organic object, it's a thing, it's a pet, right? Disney has got a way of like taking like, cartoons or inanimate objects or, pets, animals, and giving them personality and things like that. And so I thought it was an easy way to kind of go with this because of that. It's 100% up to you what you want to make your movie about or anything like that. But you can do that. Oh no, could not save because the document exceeds 2 gigabytes. That's the limit for saving Photoshop files. What should I do? Perfect. This is where I wanted to be because you need to see this because people get that message and they wig out and they start deleting layers because they don't know what to do. And that's not what you should ever do. Instead, you say file and save as, and you need to change the format of your document. So this is called NRP 252 one sheet. I am not going to change the title at all. I'm going to come down here where it says format, and I'm going to say large document format, which makes it a PSB, as in Photoshop big. And I'm going to say save to that. And say okay, and you can open it up in Photoshop. It's a Photoshop document. It's just a large format of it. Your traditional PSD can't exceed 2 gigabytes. These things will, okay? They just 100% will. Question?
Why does it have to be 2? Why doesn't Photoshop just have 1 like default?
What do you mean? Why does it have to be 2 gigabytes?
Why does it have to be like once you get here, you have to transition to the next?
To the other file format? I could lie and give you some bullshit reason, but I don't have one. I don't know. It's just, that's the PSD, that's what it can exceed. It's been like that for literally years. It's something with the engineering of the software. I do not have a real answer for you there. What I do know that though is that when people see that, and they don't know what it is, they tweak out like the entire other Graphics 2 class did the other day, which was kind of funny to watch. So you want to make sure that you do that. So when you exceed the 2 gigabytes, you do that. So here's my one sheet PSD. Look at this, 1.98 gigabytes. And here when I added that extra thing, it's 2.16 gigabytes. I was just really, that was so not necessary. I could have made this work under 2 gigabytes because I kind of feel like this poster's kind of done at this point, right? I even got a bird in there. Yes. Right? It's funny, I didn't put a bird in there just to try to get to the files. I kind of did. But at the same time, I was thinking about it, like, I'm like, that top is kind of empty, right? I kind of want to go ahead and, fix that a little bit. So, so this thing is ready to go at this point. This is all set. It's ready to rock. I want to go ahead and I want to do 2 things, all right, to it at this point. First off, I want to duplicate it, which just is going to go ahead and create a separate file for it. And I'm going to go ahead and hit flatten. And I'm going to discard all my hidden layers, right? And I'm going to say file and save as. And I'm going to save it as one sheet and I'll call it flat. Right? And say save to that. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do something else. For critique purposes only, I'm going to go into image size. And right now it's 27 by 40 at a resolution of 150. I'm just going to resample this and I'm just going to make this a resolution of 150. Again, we're doing this only at the end. I'm really just trying to make it smaller for critique purposes. So I'll say okay to that. And now I'll say file and save as yet again, except instead of a Photoshop format, it's going to be a JPEG format. And this is going to be called one sheet, and it's just going to be called crit. And I'll save that and say okay to that. And to get a sense of these sizes, right? So the PSB with layers, that was 2.16 gigabytes. The PSD with layers, with the exception of that one merge layer, that was 1.98 gigabytes. The flat PSD was 119 megabytes. The flat JPEG that had been scaled to a smaller size, that was 7.5 megabytes. Just so you're aware, too, let's open that file up and let's go ahead and take a quick look at it. Let's go to view 100%. And hey, that's still pretty good. It's still pretty clear. Look at that. That's some nice crisp vectors, right? That dog looks pretty good still. How is our bird doing? What's up, bird? How you doing, Johnny? He's good. Okay. Flowers are looking okay. Okay. These are looking good, nice and crisp. So even though I saved it as a JPEG and I halved its size, this is going to be wonderful for critique. Okay, we'll be able to go ahead and we'll be able to blow it up on the screen here really big. We'll be able to zoom into it. It's going to be great for critiquing, and it's less than 8 megabytes. So that's the power of Photoshop. If you build things correctly and you save things correctly, you can make things that look fabulous, and you can throw this in an email to your mom, okay? And she's going to be like, wow, let's put it on the fridge, and be like, Mom, it's the size of the fridge. But, it could happen. Any questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you.